Right now is the time to think about what you're going to do for next year. Cool season flowers. So cool flowers. Lisa Mason Ziegler, The Gardener's Workshop, she is the queen of cool flowers. So this, I'm going to put out that this is where I have learned all of this information from. She's got a book, Cool Flowers. I mentioned that in one of my previous videos. Get that book. Lots of great information there. I just thought I'd talk about it because I know that I am much better at listening to somebody talk about it and reading the book, having the information, and listening. I'm just better at that. So our first frost is like typical annual first frost, October 30th, November 1st, in those dates. So if you're going to start cool flowers, which are flowers that you plant in the fall and you overwinter them, and then they just kind of sit all winter, they sit, and then as soon as temperatures start to warm up in the spring, that's when they start growing, and they're going to grow taller and be stronger than they were if you planted them out right in spring, because all winter long what they're doing is they're laying down their roots, and they're just kind of getting stronger and stronger because they have got this great root system. And then when spring comes and it's warm enough for them to really put on a lot of growth, they've got that great root system, so they grow taller. That's your basic what cool flowers are. So you want to plant, have a few little notes right here so I wouldn't forget. You want to plant 6 weeks before your first frost date. Basically, you're just going to count backwards. And if I count backwards, I would want to plant about the week of September 16th. If I'm counting from my first frost date, which is October 30th. So I've got October 30th, so I count back 6 weeks, which is the week of September 16th. So then that's when I want to plant. Then I have to stop there and I have to think, okay, so when do I want to start my seeds? Because it usually takes a couple weeks for when I start the seed for it to grow and mature into a plant that's big enough for me to plant out in the garden. So I'm going to count back a couple weeks. So it would be September 2nd. That's when I would want to start my cool flowers. What are cool flowers for me? Snapdragons. Well, let me just say that I am in zone 8A. So anything that can overwinter in zone 8A is what I want to plant out. I know it's cloudy, but I keep looking at myself and I'm so squinty and I can't see. Okay. Plus these have readers and I can read my paper better. So there's that. This is my timeline from last year for my cool flowers. And as you can see, I do a late planting on October 28th. All of those worked out really well for me, except for the snapdragons. The earlier snapdragons that were planted on the 24th did better than the later snapdragons. What are cool flowers for me? There are a ton of cool flowers that I plant out. Snapdragons are the biggest cool flower for me that overwinter. They overwinter really well. They can really handle the cool weather. Tons and tons and tons of snapdragons. Snapdragons everywhere. All right, Buplurum. Well, let me go through the ones that I would direct seed first. Snapdragons I wouldn't direct seed, so Buplurum, Bells of Ireland, Nigella, Larkspur. Those are the ones that I would direct seed and right into the garden. I did that last year. Totally amazed at how well they did. And I say always, last year was the first year I did it. Lisa Mason Ziegler says to always, let's back that train up. She says always direct seed those. And when you're direct seeding, you want to make sure you do that at the proper time because they do need a little bit of warmth to get started. They need the warmth to germinate, but then they need the cold to kind of keep them small, overwinter them, let those roots grow, and then when the warmth again hits them in the spring, pop up.
I looked back at my notes from last year, and this is my timeline from last year. So I was late direct seeding, and it still worked out. My direct seeded crops did really well, so even if you're a little bit late, still give it a shot.
Make sure you get plenty of seed on the ones you're direct seeding. When you're direct seeding, you want to put enough seed so that you're going to have good germination, and then if too much comes up, you can always pull a few to make room. It's better to do that. It's better to overseed than to underseed and not have enough, if that makes sense. And that's what I didn't do last year. So I could only do like 1/4 of a bed of Bellsware Island and 1/4 of a bed of Bupleurum, where I could have used way more than that. This year I am getting plugs for snapdragons, but I'm also going to start seeds of snapdragons. So in the past I've always started all my snapdragons from seed, but last year, actually in all the years past, I have a little bit of trouble with my snapdragons, and I start tons of seeds and I don't get quite as many plants. So I have a little bit of germination trouble with my snapdragons. I have a couple of florists that would like some snapdragons. And I think in order for me to get enough snapdragons, I need plugs. So I ordered plugs from Farmer Bailey, but I'm also going to start tons of seeds. I have my plugs arriving mid-October. Now I know that sounds late because it says to plant them out the week of September, but I have noticed that typically our first frost is a little bit later, and typically we're pretty warm. So, and also we have hoops and row cover. So if I plant them out mid-October and we're going to get a frost or something like that, I can still hoop and cover them and the plants will be fine. That's my thought process there. Scabiosa and snapdragons, that's what I'm going to plant out the beginning of October. And now is the time to get your seed, because look at the calendar and it's going to be time to start, and then you won't have your seed, and then you're going to have to order it, and then it's going to come in late, and then you're going to feel behind. So it's better to go ahead and have it now than to get behind, because at least then, even if you're a little bit behind, you'll have your seed and you can start it whenever you need to start it. Cool flowers are so much easier, meaning start now in the fall. Overwinter them. Most of the stuff that I overwinter can be overwintered in my zone. It doesn't technically need to be hooped and covered. I do that really to protect it from the wind, and a lot of times last year I left hoops up to protect it from the rain, even though the rain could still kind of get to it like under and around, but at least I tried to keep it as dry as possible. The hoops helped with that. And if it was going to be a really hard frost, Arctic blast, all the things, I could at least, help with that. So that's another thing. If you don't have hoops and row cover, which is Agribond, which is frost cloth, that's what the row cover is, then go ahead and look into getting hoops and row cover now, so that when you plant and it comes time to hoop and row cover, you'll have that. Because I know in the past we're scrambling, all of a sudden they're calling for an early frost or something like that, and maybe we've planted out little baby plants and we feel like the little tiny babies need a little help and we need to hoop and cover those, and we don't have enough and we're scrambling trying to get that. So now in July, I know it sounds crazy, but now is the time to go ahead and start planning for fall and spring. Get all your supplies. Look into getting the hoops, look into getting the frost cloth. Definitely plan your crops and look into getting what seeds you want, and also your plugs. I mean, if you're going to get plugs, you need to go onto whatever site, if it's Farmer Bailey, whatever, and because they need a certain amount of time to grow those things, and get those ordered and coming at whatever time you want those to come. Now, anything for very early spring, I don't think Farmer Bailey has put that out yet as to when, because I can't order my Lysianthus yet, and that I usually have coming in February, so he hasn't put that out yet. There's also Leo Burby, and there's also Ball. I haven't ordered from Ball, to be honest with you, because I can't figure out their web track system. If anybody can help me with that, put it in the comments. Somebody please put out a video on that, because I can't figure that one out. I've ordered my corms from Leo Burby. That's who I've ordered my ranunculus and anemone and all that from. But dang, I can't figure that web track out. So somebody help me on that one. But Farmer Bailey, he's got it going on. He's easy. All his plugs have always come looking really nice. His plugs, he just orders them from Grow and Sell, which is also where some, I know Ball orders from, and so does maybe not Leo Burby, but I know Ball does. So Grow and Sell always has really nice plugs. They come in. I've never ordered Snapdragons from them before, so I'll see how that goes. But all of my Lysianthus have always come in really nicely. I wanted to do a short little video. I know I talk a lot. A heads up on cool flowers, and get that in your mind so that you can sit down and get your orders going and figure out where you want to order from. The two places I order my seeds from, Johnny's and the Gardener's Workshop. You can also order from GeoSeeds. They have much better pricing, much, than both of those places. But yeah, the seeds are like in the thousands, and I have never planted that many, so I have just held off on ordering. I've held off on ordering from them. I've always had good luck with both Johnny's and the Gardener's Workshop. I always, when I'm planting mine out, I label them to see, do I have better luck with either one of those, and I've had about the same amount of luck with both. The Gardener's Workshop, and most places, I think even in Johnny's, it'll say the hardiness zone for that flower. The hardiness zone means, like if it says it's hardy in zones 5 through 8, that means you can overwinter it in zones 5 through 8. It's supposed to be hardy in those zones overwinter 5 through 8. So if you're in zone 8, then you can overwinter that plant. That means start it in the fall, plant it out 6 weeks before your frost date, and overwinter it. Now, yes, have I had plants die? Absolutely. Like I said, tried Godicia. It said it was hardy. It just didn't work out for me. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to plant it in very early spring, like February, and go that route because I've had good luck with that. But yeah, I mean, you're gonna have some fails just like everything else, but typically you'll have more luck than you will have fails. I like Madam Butterfly Snapdragons because they're doubles. They germinate pretty well for me. And then I do like the Gardener's Workshop Sunset Dragon mix. Those colors were really pretty, did really well for me last year, and the plant did really well for me last year. If I was going to succession plant my Snapdragons, I would plant Potomac more in like February. I did have thrips towards the end of my Snapdragons. Luckily, it was after Mother's Day. I just ripped them all down, tossed them all because I wasn't dealing with thrips, and I didn't want it to get to the rest of my flowers. So I don't know, I tend not to leave Snapdragons up too long because that's like perfect thrip timing, and they love thrips, especially the white ones. I don't know that I'm going to plant white Snapdragons this year because they really love the white Snapdragons, and so I don't know, just because of thrips. But when the Snapdragons first come up, the weather is cooler and thrips are not out. But towards the end, like in May, after Mother's Day, weather is perfect timing for thrips, and they love Snapdragons. And I don't know, we don't spray and that kind of thing, and I don't like to deal with it, so I tend not to succession plant Snapdragons because I just feel like it brings on a thrip problem that I don't feel like dealing with. So obviously that's up to you, totally. It's just me. rip it out and go on with, you know, the next thing. Having a lot of different plants come in handy. There was a gap between my snapdragons and my Gadaisha, but my Gadaisha was like 1st of June. So yeah, that didn't come in right after snapdragons. But my Nigella and different things kept popping up here and there. So having a variety of the cool flowers definitely helped last year for things to be blooming at different times. So there's certain flowers that like to get started in the cold, but then bloom in the warm. And those are cool flowers. Cool flowers like to get started in the cold, but bloom when it's warmer. And so look for the plants that say plant before your first frost. Those are cool flowers. And then look at your zone. See if it's hardy in your zone. Look at your first frost date and count back from there. And go ahead and plant 6 weeks before your first frost date. The 6 weeks before the first frost date is just to give your plants enough time to settle in, kind of get acclimated and get a little bit hardy before they have to incur that first frost and kind of deal with that. And because if you put them right in and they're all baby tender plants and then they deal with the frost, that usually kills them. But if they've been put in the ground and, you know, spread their roots a little bit and they've gotten a little bit hardened off and hardy in the ground and then the frost hits them, then usually they're fine. Hoop and the row cover is just an insurance, basically. If it's going to be above 30, take the row cover off because I want my plants to stay cool. That's the whole point. So I'll take the row cover off. Now, if it's going to be rainy and windy in 30, I leave it up. If it's going to be rainy and 50, I'll probably take it down. If it's been raining for 5 days and going to be rainy and 50, I'll probably leave it up. So obviously, you have to make some judgments there. But use sandbags to secure the row cover on both sides. It's easy. You can take it up and down really pretty easily. And one person can do it with the sandbags, secure it, and it really does stay pretty well. We actually use the Agribon 30. She uses Agribon 19. 19 lets through a lot more light than the 30. I would like to use Agribon 19 because it lets through more light, but it's ripped so much on us that we use the Agribon 30 because it's thicker. It just lets through less light. Now when it's raining, it lets through less rain, so then there's that part of it too. So there's pros and cons to everything. You just have to look and decide which you want to use. Lisa Mason Ziegler, when you look at all the Gardener's Workshop things, she uses shorter wire hoops. We use taller metal hoops that we've made using Johnny's hoop bender, and we have a video on that if you want to see that. So you can look back through our videos to see that. These are just things that work for us when we're doing the cool flowers. I am big on cool flowers because they have come in clutch. They have been so much better than if I was to plant them out like in the spring. Before, I planted them out in the spring and it took forever for them to come up, and the snapdragons were not as tall and were not as awesome as they are if I plant them out in the fall and overwinter them. So I've noticed a huge difference with planting them out in the fall and overwintering them. And then you'll be so happy when all of a sudden you have all these flowers blooming that you planted several months ago, and then you can start focusing more on your warm season stuff. I hope that this video has helped you some as far as cool flowers go. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. I'll try to answer them. I am not a cool flower expert by any means, but this will be my 3rd year doing cool flowers. So I've got a little bit of experience and I'll try to answer those. Again, super helpful, and I would highly recommend at least trying it if you've never tried it before, because I think it is definitely worth a try. It is so helpful when it comes springtime and they all start coming up and you're like, yes, I have flowers now. and I planted them a long time ago, and yay. Okay, the two places I order my seeds from for my fall